The Bible says the soul that sins is the one that shall die, right? Where what God is basically trying to highlight over there is that you got to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. You, unique individual, you're going to account to God by your individual unique self. You don't have an excuse to say that your daddy did it, so you're doing it. You don't have an excuse to say that your grandmother did it, so you did it. You have to put to death the deeds of your body, because you know that you are born dead in trespasses and sins, and in those sins did your parents conceive you. You know that you are more than likely going to end up being your father's daughter, your mother's daughter, or your father's son, or your mother's son. You're going to basically commit the atrocities and abominations of your parents and those who came before them. You are set up for the failure or the doom of your dead grandmother, even before you can say, like I said, goo goo gaga. But you're without excuse when you insist on this, because I gave you my invisible qualities all over creation. I wrote my law on your heart. I gave you a conscience to know that certain things are not right, certain things are approved. I gave you my law. I told you what is right and what is wrong, and you just chose to ignore it. So if your grandmother was a hard-knock Nazi, you don't get to say, but like it's in my blood. When you have got racist sentiment in you, and you're a human being that has a conscience, and you see a black child in school being bullied, wrestled, jostled about, basically just kind of given a really hard time, and you feel bad about it, but because you're all a bunch of white kids and you want to fit in with all of your boys, even though you are just really disquieted by this thing, when you pass away, should you die in your sins without embracing the gospel, the Lord is going to bring that forward to you as a witness against you in some kind of a movie of your life that's going to be played at the Great White Throne Judgment, where he's going to say, very well, you were born to a family of Nazis and you had nothing but Nazi friends in high school, but you remember how you felt when that one black kid or that one Jewish boy was being jostled about, wrestled and tossed and turned like an egg on a frying pan. You remember that you were uncomfortable and sad, and your guilt took you home to a point where you were lingering on thought about how you gauged that boy that was being wrestled and jostled as a human being. Something in you felt uncomfortable, and yet you ran with the grain. You ran with the grain until you grew up to be a successful man. You married a wife, and the two of y'all at braais, at gatherings, continued to speak about black people, Jews, etc. like they ain't jack. The initial conscience that sparked in your heart as a kid, you ignored it until you seared it and you smeared it and you suppressed it for so long that eventually you became a grown man that now felt nothing at the sorrow of those groups that you have ostracized. Right. And then he will quote the word of his own word and say, I told you in this book in the Bible that it is the soul that sins that shall die. You also called yourself a Christian, so you were also privy to the gospel. So more so are you without excuse because you were close to the light. The Bible made it clear that even though your daddy and your grandmama were Nazis, you don't gotta be one. And in your conscience, you knew that it was wrong to be one. So depart from me, worker of iniquity, I never knew you. Even though you claimed to be my disciple, you took my scriptures out of whack, you discombobulated them, you were ridiculous, and then you claimed that, I gave you supremacy as a white race, when that is absolutely rubbish, and you were whacking my scriptures out of tune. That's what's good. And then this person will not be able to argue against God. They won't. They will not be able to basically defend themselves as to why they did that, especially not being able also to say, but my grandmother was like that. What could I have done? That's what my dad was teaching me. The whole passage in God's word in Ezekiel speaking about Yonah, the soul that sins shall die, basically says that if a son, repents from the sins essentially of their father, they will be spared. If they walk in righteousness, they will be spared, but their dad will be condemned, will be judged. But if the dad makes a decision to do what is right and be righteous, but the son continues in insanity, the dad will by his righteousness save his own life, while the son will by his wickedness condemn it. So we are uniquely responsible to account to God for our lives. And so we have got to make a decision, if at all we're born in a clump of racist family members, to break away. That's why it's written in God's word that he has come upon the earth not to bring peace but a sword. And that division, frankly, is the gospel. It is God's truth versus the world's cultural ways of being. Once you happen upon the truth of God, you have a responsibility to separate yourself. You have to be mother against daughter. You have got to be brother against brother. You have got to be father against son. You have basically got to break away from the club of friends in school that hate black kids as a white kid. You have got to separate yourself from that. That's why the scriptures also say that unless a person, no one can die. No one can put their hand to the plow and then look back and be fit for the kingdom of heaven, right? So if you don't follow the precepts of God, you can't truly be a disciple. It's that basic. Not only that, it is written that unless you hate your mother, your brother, your father, your sister, whatever it is that might be the thing that's hindering you from a relationship with God Almighty, you can't enter the kingdom of heaven. And by hatred, God is, of course, that word trying to speak to, unless you love me enough to walk away from those that don't love me, you can't be my disciple. So he's not necessarily saying hate your mom and destroy their lives, her life. He is saying if your mom is a Nazi and you are my disciple, you have got to be prepared to have her disown you because you're marrying a black wife or a Jewish wife. You have got to disown if at all your dad decides to disown you because you get my point. You've done whatever. Yeah, you on that day then can be fit to be my disciple unless you hate that which is the cultural training in favor of renewing your mind by the word of God, transforming it. You cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. It's a unique individual decision. But I will say this, certain cultures have got automatic biases. So kids born to certain races are automatically going to have a certain struggle with sin. They're going to have a certain issue with overcoming that particular sin because of their generational curses, right? The soul that sins is the one that shall die, but it is the one that overcomes the devil by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony that then suppresses and puts to death the deeds of the body that linger them towards a particular nuance. I was watching Gospel for Christ Ministries, right? I think that's what it's called. And this gentleman was covering the testimony of yet another gentleman, a dude that was born in a family. He was born to a lesbian family, like the mom and the mom. Like he had two moms. A guy that had two moms. And he grew up in that ecosystem. It's all he ever knew. His mom had him through artificial insemination. He'd never known a dad. And yet when he was I think it was 16 years old, one of his friends invited him to church and he got really reached, even though he had no understanding of the things of God at all up until that date. And he broke away from the acceptance of the lifestyle of his mother. Even though he still loved his mom, and even though he had not, even though he was influenced very richly by that culture, and also even though he wasn't necessarily persecuted by his friends or people in his school who were like, you have two moms, we've got mom and dad. He never really endured any kind of discrimination because of that lifestyle that he was living. Basically, it's one of those, it ain't broke, so don't fix it. He didn't experience any kind of cultural affliction for the situation that he came to, all right? That he was born from, and yet at the age of 16 he broke away from the mentality, the mindset that this is okay, and he made it clear to his mom that I'm a Christian now, and the lifestyle that you are in, I have come to be convicted, is not healthy, it's not right. Thankfully, miraculously, the mother and him are still good because the mom really loved her son, so she was not trying to lose him or whatever, but he made it clear that I cannot approve, I cannot be part of this lifestyle anymore. You are my mom, I will always love you, but if you decide to take a partner and marry them, I can't be at your wedding, I can't, etc. The mom miraculously understood, right? She took it, and what have you, but there are some instances where you will literally lose your mom or your dad. People are going to give you grief, whatnot. That is a young man, as young as 16. He was born again at 16, and then he is now like he's 30 today, right? If at the age of 16, when you're that impressionable and peer pressure is having that much of a field day with you, you can still make such a mature decision, it then means that everybody else is without excuse. Like your whole moral compass is yet to be established. Your brain is yet to fully mature when you're 16. And yet if you can, at 16, literally take up your cross and follow Christ in spite of what could be the potential ramifications of you doing that, that is how it is that the gospel is done. That's how the gospel is done. Okay, that's how Christianity is done. That's how sanctification is done. So anybody that just latches on to their nuances of their cultural nuances is irresponsible on that day. So we get that people are born with natural the tendencies towards a certain thing. That young man was supposed to just be pro LGBTQ community, even though in and of himself he was straight. He never really struggled with homosexual desire. He would have, however, thanks to him being born into a family where he had two moms, he would have automatically been an advocate for that community. And yet he broke away from that mindset at just 16. At just 16. Yeah, that is what it's called, what it means to basically hate your mother, hate your father, take up the cross and follow Christ and put to death the deeds of the body. Is to realize that you might be your mother's daughter or your mother's son, or your father's daughter or your father's son. But if you are going to enter the kingdom of heaven, you have got to hate your mother and your father. You have got to walk away. You have got to do that. We all have got natural inclinations, and predispositions, almost congenitally, right? Like basically like birth defects. We have got them, all of us, largely based on what cultural groups we are born in. Whatever racial groups we are born in, we tend towards certain sinful propensities because we all came up with our own ideals as to what makes sense. All right? Very well. However, like I said, these individual tendencies towards a certain sinfulness are, again, like I said, different across cultures, and it is the responsibility of everybody within these cultures to intentionally guard them, to look out for them. So like with white people I explained that they are born with a generational demon, the generational curse of God complexing, of a messianic complex. Before they can say gugu gaga gaga, they're set up already for that failure. And it is their responsibility to squelch it. Do you understand? It's their responsibility to basically make war with it, to realize that nobody here is God but God, and that the Lord can use anyone to save the day and not necessarily only them. The Bible also says that God will transfer over the sins of the fathers to the third and the fourth generation. So the whole maintenance of certain cultural ills by certain cultural groups will just keep on being proliferated like a baton being passed from one relay runner to another, unless somebody puts a dead break on it. Unless somebody decides, Uti, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I just can't. It is the responsibility of us individual, unique members of families to say, I'm not going to carry on with the trend of my mom or my dad. God is the one that will give you your grandfather's sins and your great-grandfather's sins. But you, because he will basically, the sins of the forefathers, you will inherit them, unless you choose to be the soul that does not sin, that lives. He says, I put before you blessings and curses, life and death, therefore choose life. If you don't choose life, you are inevitably going to be your mother's daughter. You are inevitably going to be your grandmother's grandchild. You are inevitably going to be your great-grandmother's great-grandchild. But you don't have to go out like that. I have given you invisible qualities. I've given you all you need to not be your grandmother's grandkid. And when then you become your grandmother's grandkid anyway, you're without excuse. You are without excuse. But the tendency to be your grandmother's grandkid, like I said, it tends to be a particular way. And like I said, in white culture, it tends to be this God complex. White girls and boys are born automatically, like from the get-go, by mere virtue of them being born in this community, going to feel a sense of superiority above black people, even if they're growing up in a diverse culture. 2024, they're growing up in a time when slavery has been abolished, systematic oppression in whatever countries they're in has been abolished. Frankly, it's old school news for people to be this racist anymore, and yet they will naturally incline towards believing that they're bigger and better than black folk. It is the responsibility of each individual unique white kid to see the problem in thinking that you are better than the black kids or the Indian kids. And then upon giving your life to Christ, basically fighting the God complex, fighting the messianic complex, fighting the belief that you are always going to be there to rescue the day because you come from old money. And so you're the only one that can snatch a poor woman out from a shack and put them in better housing. The equality of human beings before God has got to be recognized as such, enough for a person to see that, my goodness, literally, I am a narcissist. The way that I think about black people, even though I am not a racist, I was not raised racist. My mom is not a racist. My dad is not a racist. My parents raised me to basically love everybody, but somehow something inside me just feels like I'm better than black kids. It just like happens. So what I gotta do is realize that this is problematic. That's the beauty of the gospel. It makes you see yourself for what you are. That is an inheritance from long ago, and we all gotta squelch it. We all have different nuances. Now, having spoken about white folks' main issues, right, I will then speak to black folks' issues, because I had to go and speak of the racist issue. I mean, not racist, but the God complex that tends to dwell in white bones, in order to ultimately slam the hammer down where the black community is concerned. White folk have to put to death the propensity towards being within a God complex. And it's a fight that they're fighting successfully in the kingdom of heaven. They are resisting. Hallelujah, praise God for their feats in conquering in this regard. But black people, your problem is you've got many, right? We all have different issues. But the thing that is resonating and thick and rich and deep amidst you is just the way that you are so lax in the adoration, love, protection, and maintenance of the sanctity of your women. The black community just literally, like, you are so harsh to women. Like, it's just bad. It is so bad that we literally have a reputation as black women for ending up, like, there's a name that has been coined to describe us called angry black woman. There is no name coined stereotypically that says angry white woman, or angry Indian woman, angry Chinese woman, angry Puerto Rican, angry Latina. It's us. We are the ones that are always angry. That is the issue in the black community. Now, I personally, as a black person living in the most unequal country in the world, that is South Africa, cannot vouch for my life being super rough and impossible because of white supremacy or racism. I'm a black person, so of course I've endured racism from multiple races, not just white, but it's not my pet peeve, and it's not the biggest afflictor of my soul. It is not the main thing that made my life hellish. When I was a kid, there were these, we used to play, the reason, I used to attend this aftercare. I was in primary school, but then our parents would take us to aftercare as primary school kids, but the aftercare was at a creche, and the kids that would go to the aftercare, it was from different schools. I was from Winchester Ridge Primary, and we had friends that were from Robert Shem and primary, and whatever primary schools around that area. And because we were all kids and we were innocent and whatnot, right, my friend and I were from Winchester Ridge, and we were black girls, the two of us, but our friends, the rest of them, were white. There were these 3 white girls and this 1 white boy. 2 of the white kids were brother and sister, right? The white boy and one of the white girls, brother and sister pair, but the other chicks were just like for other people's kids, right? We were friends, and we used to love each other, play with each other all the time. Nothing of race was ever mentioned, but then one day we had a fight, a falling out. I don't know what in the world happened, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the brother-sister pair started calling us the K word. Right, started calling me and my and the other black girl the K word, because I believe the fight sparked as a result of something that the one black girl was disquieted by. I would have been neutral in that whole fight until this boy and this girl started calling me and my friend the K word. We were all friends, but with us being then called the K word, of course, then I shut up, I shut off, I closed off, because I'm also a black person. The K word is the tantamount of the N word in America. Okay, it's a derogatory term that was used in the days of apartheid against black people, and so we don't take it very well. That's what's good. And this fight ensued and ensued and ensued, and we argued for a couple of minutes until the 2 white girls joined in that horrific racist spat against us, the brother-sister pair. So the brother-sister pair were obviously from a family where it is that the K word was just being thrown around, and it was apparently acceptable to talk about black people like that. However, at creche or at aftercare, they were so kids and so neutral, and they had a genuine love for just friendship at all, that they were able to just get over the fact that mom and dad are racist, and played with me and my friend. We were all just neutral. Up until that point, we had a fight, and then the white kids called us the K word. And then the 2 other white girls decided then to start baiting. They took a side, and the side they took was the side of the brother-sister pair, right? What in the world did that? So the 2 white girls would not have initially just had this come up out of them. They unlikely came from a family or families where it is that the K word was just being thrown around. So they would never have afflicted us like that. Yeah, but the moment the boy and the girl from the same family called us that. They chose a skin color side. They chose a side and they agreed. They came in concert with it. What would cause a kid from a family that has said, my daughter, my child, black people are people, white people are people, Indian people are people, don't be racist. And then this kid goes to school and then meets in their crew of friends a racist friend. And then they adopt the insanity of the racist friend at the expense of their parents' training. What would do that? It's a generational curse. It is just this thing that lies dormant in the bodies of people that have got ancestors that were in this fashion. Their body, we are born dead in trespasses and sins, and we are slaves to sin, right? And our parents conceive us in sin. To resist sin and choose what is right is a feat that is near on impossible for people that are in the world. And these sins are generationally passed down. So when you have something that is like a dormant beast lying inside you, you will automatically gravitate towards that dormant beast unless by the Holy Spirit you are enabled to conquer it. So these two white kids, the other white girls that were not about that business, became about that business because the dormant beast in them was racism. And so they ended up banding against me and my girl. And I also, of course, took the side of the black girl because I'm a black girl and I also don't like being called the K word. And so it was 4 against 2. The next day, it was like nothing happened. Water under the bridge, we were kids. We played with each other again. It's like nothing happened, but I will never forget that incident. I will never forget it. I will never forget how it is that the other two white kids automatically chose the aside, even though their parents would have probably been very disappointed. And then would go on to meet years down the line. One of the white girls, we'd all grown up now, we were in high school, but she went to Glen Vista High and I was at Sir John. I saw her walking around outside of our school type thing. And I was behind them. I was like, Kim, hi. Because I recognized her from primary school. We were all friends at some point. Remember, it was water under the bridge. After the next day, it's like nothing happened. We just went back. You know, kids just bounce back. So it's not like we left on a bad note or whatever sour. This is a friend of mine from primary school. And I'm greeting Kim. Kim was one of the girls that was neutral at first, and then she chose the racist side. She now had grown up. She was a teenage girl just like me. And I saw her in her red school uniform, Glen Vista, and I tried to greet. And Kim ignored me. She walked right by me and ignored me. I kept on saying Kim, thinking maybe, I don't know, I'm good, Ram. And then she finally stopped because I was annoying her, right? She looked back, and she was like, I don't talk to black people. Okay, Kim, look, the beast grew. So first you support the other two kids who are racist, and it's clear that that's not what you were raised in. So your parents would be disappointed. And then you meet friends at Glen Vista High. The two of y'all have a messianic complex. You have a superiority complex. The three of y'all, the scheme of friends, the crew of white girl friends. You then learn a rhetoric and you talk about this all the time until ultimately what it is, that was the beast that only coughed when you were just like 11, 10. The beast that only coughed but then went back dormant when you were 10, 11. Now that you are 15, 14, it is growing into quite the handsome monster. And now you are willing to basically ignore your black friend and say, when she won't stop just calling your name, look back at her and say, what you call this? I don't talk to black people. It broke my heart and I let it go. But I realized that the beast in Kim grew. And now, goodness, literally divine intervention is the only thing that can snap Kim out of that. Like, she would need to get saved. That is salvation is the only way for Kim to realize that what in the world? What am I doing? Like, growing up, maybe some people, you know, as kids grow up in a very racist atmosphere, and then when they become adults, they snap out of it without like Jesus, right? Without redemption. Yeah, some of them get there, whatnot, but the be all and end all of a cure of such a deep-seated hatred is Jesus. So yeah, I have experienced racist treatment of my person by white folk. I really have, but I can't say that it was so frequent and at so many junctures that I can't deal. I was in school, high school and primary, with white kids that were neutral. Like, they were good peoples. Later on Facebook, I would become friends with a whole bunch of white alumni from my schools, you know, that I used to attend, either, you know, Sir John, Winchester, whatnot, and they were good people. Hey, Karabo, it's been a while, you've grown up, look at you, type thing. Nothing. No, yeah, so my biggest pain as a black woman in South Africa is not racism. That experience with the kids in primary school was isolated, like in the worst way. It was not a general thing that kept on happening. And the thing that happened with Kim was also isolated in the worst way. I was not generally mistreated by white kids in schools I attended, neither university. I was not generally mistreated by white people. I was not generally in corporate, wherever it is that I was at, right? So racism is not my biggest fear. I have not been so afflicted by racism as a black person in this country, even though it is the most unequal country in the world. Do you understand what I'm saying? But I believe that inequality really speaks more than anything to the wealth distribution. But at the end of the day, still, like, white people hold the most of our wealth still. Anyway, right? But despite that level of inequality in the country, I would be lying in the worst way if I said that white folk have really done me dirty and I can't deal. Like, I don't know why they even exist. Like, I've had my fair share of racism, but it is not the it is not the be all and end all of the main problem that I have experienced perpetually over and over and over again as a black person. It's not. What is are black people. The thing that caused post-traumatic stress disorder in me to a point of being triggered the most has been the behavior of black people towards black people. I have not experienced racist mistreatment of my person to a point of developing a trigger, a PTSD, to a point of avoiding whites or being scared of them, or even developing a rhetoric in and of myself that is anti-white. I've only experienced white male indiscretion at my person in the same capacity that a lot of people just deal with a lot of nonsense, like experiencing road rage once a year. It's something that happened that upset you, but it's not so frequently occurring that it would literally engraft into your bones a trauma that would make you guarded all the time. So I'm not guarded against white folk, even though I've experienced racism every so often in pockets from them, because they have their indiscretions against me. Those who walked in indiscretion are sparsely scattered and literally few and far between in a country that is the most unequal on earth. But the compacted harassment that just won't stop, that is day and night to a point where I can't deal, it's from black people. Black people are my trigger. Black people are my biggest, most be all and end all of a trigger. I'm pressed to pee. Let me go pee. Okay, yeah, I've used the bathroom. I'm good now. I feel like y'all don't want to know anything of that nature, but I'm saying it anyway. Okay, yeah, righto. So I made mention of the fact that before I went to use the bathroom that I have, of course, experiences as a black person. I'm 40 years old, so of course it's like, they compacted racist attacks on my person by white folk. I have experienced them. I have not experienced racist attacks from any other race. It's only ever been white, right? Whatnot, but there's not so many experiences against my person by them that I would develop a fear and a guardedness against all white folk. I don't generalize at all. I don't have a trigger. There's nothing in me that's traumatized. Perhaps black people in America might, have different experiences, or in Europe, but I'm in South Africa, and it's really, like, for me personally, it's not that bad. It has not been that bad, but my worst experiences have been at the hands of black people. I've been saying this entire time that I'm speaking that every cultural group has got their biases, their unique individual issues, that they have sins against God that are more commonplace in their racial group than others. Not because God is all about segregating between races, but because human beings clumped with each other and then created nuances that are sinful against God in their own cultural group, such that people born to that race automatically inherit certain ills of their moms and dads, going backwards type thing. Yeah, within the black community, it's literally globally known, not just in my country, that women women in the black community always end up very severely embittered. When I spoke the initial stages of communicating here, I spoke about murderousness, basically a homicidal general fever that is in me concerning persistent, ridiculous men. I also spoke about how it is that everybody has their own pet peeve. There's something that you like that you don't like. There are things that you just will never take. There are things that will cause you to react according to other people looking at you. According to other people looking at you, others will imagine you overreactive to them. They will think of you as just hypersensitive, like, Karabo, really, it's not that deep. But to you, it is that deep, because it has caused that much of an extremity of PTSD trauma. Like, you've got so many repeat offenses at the hands of this particular thing that even though people think that you are overreacting, you get why you feel that way about certain things. And I feel this kind of way about black folk, okay, about black men in particular, and I'm having to put to death the deeds of the body by the Holy Spirit, because I am recognizing, praise the Lord for coffee. I'm recognizing that just like Kim, I spoke about Kim, the white girl who was my friend in primary school, and there was a racist spat that came out and she chose the racist side against me, but then we recovered, all of us, and then I later saw her again walking past my school in high school, and I greeted her and she looked back and said, I don't talk to black people. Yeah, that thing inside Kim, she had to now later on in life, my prayer is that she's ever since then repented, deal with God with it. Okay, she has to have taken the Holy Spirit and put to death the deeds of her body in that regard, known what is her core issue, and then wrestled with it. John Piper is a Christian pastor that I respect, and he confessed that he had a problem with black people here. Basically, he was racist on the come up, and by the Holy Spirit, he had to intentionally go to work to fight that inclination inside him, right? When you have got something dwelling inside you dormantly like Kim, that even though your parents teach you differently, you have got to go more to war with it than any other sin inside you. Otherwise, you're in danger. I'll give you yet another example. Look at Vicky Momberg. Vicky Momberg. There is this woman in this country by the name of Vicky Momberg. I'm from South Africa. Vicky Momberg is a woman. I guess I think she's still alive. Who was caught on camera, basically, cussing out the police when they stopped her on the side of the road for something. And the police who were dealing with her were black, right? They had stopped her, and she vocalized to these police officers who recorded this on camera that I will not deal with black people. I don't want to deal with black police officers. Bring me a colored, bring me an Indian or a white police officer, but I don't want to deal with blacks. And it was caught on camera, and it did its rounds on social media, and the world and the country was in uproar. And she trended hashtag Vicky Momberg for the next 2 weeks thereafter. Okay, she basically vomited her explicit racism in front of everybody after being caught by the popo doing whatever she was doing. And then these police officers, of course, arrested her, and she had to deal with the wrath of the law, etc. Her mother was then interviewed, right, when this thing was doing its rounds in the media, and her mother came forth and confessed and said, I don't know why my daughter would say stuff like that, because I didn't teach her to be racist. I didn't teach her that. Yeah, Kim was exactly like Vicky Momberg, her and Storm. They were exactly like Vicky Momberg, kids that were taught differently by their moms and dads of which had put to death the deeds of their bodies, to not just capitulate to racist sentiment that dwells as a dormant beast inside white folk. Do you understand what I'm saying? And yet their kid, the soul that sins shall die, capitulated to their sinful beast rising. So mom then gets all shocked and comes forward to the point of literally standing in front of news networks, prepared to embarrass her daughter and say, I did not teach my kid to hate blacks. So I don't know where this is coming from. Yeah, I can tell Vicky Momberg's mom where this is coming from. It's sin. It's dormant beasts lying in all of us. Vicky Momberg has therefore a much stronger intentionality needed in her to conquer racist sentiment against black people in particular. Right? Because she wasn't racist against any other race except blacks. She said that she wanted to see, I'm sorry that this makeup keeps falling off. It's unseemly, but whatever, let's move on. She said that she wanted to see any other race of cop, not black. She could take colored, which is half black, half white. She could take Indian. She could take white, but not black. Yeah, Vicky had to have a more intentionally, more hotly fight that in her, because it was a dormant beast lying therein. What I'm trying to get at is that the more dormant a particular sin sits in your body, and the more feverish that beast is, if it were to rise, the more war you have to make with it. Just as John Piper made war with racism, you have to intentionally make war with whatever is the main issue that dwells inside you. You have to be more intentional in fighting it, because you are more inclined towards that thing than any other person in the streets. It is your main problem. It's your main disease. It's your main cancer. That's what's good. My problem within the black community is that people are not actively trying to fight the main thing that's killing us as a people. And the more you have, like I said, the more there is this main thing dwelling in you, the more it'll come out. And if at all an individual has that for, never mind a pet peeve, but an extreme PTSD trigger, the more it is righteous, holy, and self-preserving to avoid that particular thing for the sake of, like I said, self-preservation. If something is your exquisite pet peeve, if something is your exquisite trigger, and there is someone or a group of people that are more likely to experience you through that trigger, the more you will avoid them. And the more it's self-preserving to avoid them. The more it is in your best interest, if you're going to be righteous, to just avoid that ecosystem at all. Now, I told you guys that God hates sin. And the Lord knows what is the thing that triggers us the most as on earth. What is the thing that makes us walk in sinfulness the most? God is therefore not going to throw you as a person suffering or struggling with a particular trigger in it mellifluously, like in it just constantly. Like he's not going to bombard you with the thing that's going to make you really unable to exercise self-control. It's written in his word that God does not tempt anyone, but because in and of himself he can't be tempted. But we, with our desires, go on right ahead to do the most. Okay, sin gets bred in our heart and then brings about death because we follow after our desires. But the scriptures also say, gouge out your eye and cut off your hand. If you can do that, then you're good. You flee from sin. So if you, for instance, if as a man, you struggle with a certain kind of, woman, it is in your best interest to flee from sexual immorality. By every time she walks in the room, literally just like fleeing, like getting out, running. Yeah, you could be mature, true, and be like, I'm strong as timber. I'm just going to be in the climate of this woman that stumbles me. And keep strong, bashing your chest on a mountaintop like King Kong. You can totally tell yourself that, by all means. And indeed, if you succeed, congratulations, you're stronger than most of us. But God says if something stumbles you that severely, just get out the room. Get out the room. If something stumbles you that severely, get out the room. So if you feel as if though something can cause you to murder, don't even engage with it. Don't even try. Like if something angers you, don't go to war with it. Don't battle. Don't wrestle it. Don't combat. Don't insist on being strong. Don't make yourself the Incredible Hulk. Don't make yourself a beastly warrior that will lose. And God himself will not throw you into that situation. He will protect you from it. But if you capitulate to it yourself, then you're in danger on that day, aren't you? I spoke about pet peeves. I explained to you that I have a relative that is constantly sabotaging me. And yet somehow I'm able to every so often just kind of ignore that that's what she did. And so I can still maintain a cordiality with her and be godly in so maintaining that cordiality. Lanse ang borile. Do you understand? Because that's what she is not a sufficient trigger to make me sin so heinously against God that the Lord would basically frown and look upon me like I suck. God allowed that company in my climate precisely because it's there to test me. We get it. Not tempt me, but test me. We get it, right? And he has given me everything I need in order to make war with it and to succeed. But God is not going to put me in a climate that I just won't win. I won't, because it's that extreme a trigger. God is not going to put me in an environment where I literally cannot win. And the thing for me where I can't win are evil, licentious men. I can't. Like I literally cannot win because all that is brewed in my heart concerning them is so much hatred that I want them dead. I want them dead. The prayers that I pray against the evil men that come at me with korobela, guys, literally I ask the Lord not so much protect me from them, but kill them. I pray that God would kill them. That's the kind of prayer that I send to heaven. I want them dead. I feel nothing for them. Nothing. And to imagine that the day's gonna arrive when, just like my relative, even though you're gaslighting me, I see it. What goodness. Like, I see that you sabotaged me. But anyway, if you tell me to greet you, I'll greet you anyway. And just let it go. For them to think that I can just merely glide homeostatically in their environment one day, having accepted what they are, because it turns out that I can't conquer it. I can't overwhelm it. It's in my ecosystem. It's there. So it's naive. I would kill it. I would kill it. And God is not going to put me in any position to end anybody's life. So men who insist on marrying women that don't belong to them, unlike a lot of black women that are always just ending up super angry and therefore just mean-spirited and go around in these streets treating other women like trash because of their pain, the scorn of these ladies making them uncomfortably menacing. But all they do is just yell at kids too much. All they do is just gossip other women and sabotage other women too much. It's not going to end with random, minuscule, incremental indiscretions. With me, it's going to end in murder. I thoroughly can see it in the worst way. The day arriving when I would kill a man. Not because I've always just been that snappy nasty of a strange, weird, crazy woman. It's because, just like in the case of racism, I would be the tantamount of a person that was enslaved by a white person and beaten all my life by them, and then tossed to and from white families that all treated me like trash until I hated all white people. Yeah, I never endured that level of insanity at the hands of white folks, so I don't have that kind of guard up, and neither do I have a homicidal agenda against them. I have not experienced that much trauma from all of them, so I can still live at peace with my fellow man, but I can't live at peace with Korobela men. I can't live at peace with forceful men. The reason why that's a thing is because it stole my family, my career, the money out of my pocket, the tampons I use on my period. It has taken away everything just so it can take me, Gankan, and then insisted on planting feelings in my heart when I don't have them. That's what black men do to women, and we are the single most disgusting demographic when it comes to coercing people to be with you, galerato. No other race on earth compares to black people when it comes to forcefulness. No other. There is nowhere else where a person will just keep going back to the drawing board with Korobela over and over and over and over and over and over again. It's only in literally, this is a black issue. And I will tell you why it's a black issue, because it's a thing that back long ago, when we were still very super segregated and isolated, all right? It all had to do with your gods and what they're doing. When we were still just with each other, before we even got colonized by white supremacy, we made up gods. And the thing about gods or demons, fallen angels, or spirits, is that they tend to proliferate a particular kind of culture in the people that they're in. And this culture that they promulgate is often, of course, sinful, because they are fallen beings that can only steal, kill, and destroy. Right? So how it is that they cause multiple societies to fall apart and hate God is by injecting one particular sin. There tends to be one particular sin. Like they're smart. Like, whoa, demons, they're really smart that way. They are not going to make a society, all of it in Jeffela, like sodomites, right next to child molesters, right next to racist, right next to gossips. That would be too clamorous, too cantankerous. People still need to have some kind of semblance of civilization in order to feel like things are going to be okay tomorrow. People still need to be able to plant and uproot and harvest and basically get along largely in other parts. The Bible makes it clear that a little leaven leavens the whole lump. It is written that Satan masquerades as an angel of light. So it means that certain of what it is that he thrives and allows in a society is godly. He just leaves like 75% to 80% of a society walking in normalness according to God, but then he will muddy with 20% of an indiscretion. Otherwise, like I said, if all the fruits of the sinful nature were to die and muddy and filthy up a culture, cantankerous, it would be literally too chaotic. If any single society was all just like Sodom, there wouldn't even be enough children born, because men are busy with men, women are busy with women. Let's go briefly to Galatians 5. Please just let me find it quickly. Yeah, the fruit of the sinful nature. I just want to read them. All right, Galatians 5. In any given society, the devil will always invest. Where are we? 1 or 2 or 3, but not all right? So now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, heresies, that means, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such the like. Okay, these are the fruits of the sinful nature. If Satan literally caused a society to just be bubbling and teeming at the folds with adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revilings, and such the like, if one society were to be teeming at the folds, in increasing measure, exponentially growing are these issues, in one fell sweep, implosion, entropy. Why? Because the wages of sin is death. Okay? And so this would cause death, too much death for societies to thrive and grow. So therefore Satan will, in his stealth and his pernicious, exquisite intelligence, will only make a society largely just focused on a crazy adulterous sentiment, or a crazy fornicatory sentiment, or a crazy uncleanness sentiment, or a crazy lascivious sentiment, or a crazy idolatry sentiment, a crazy witchy sentiment, a crazy hateful sentiment, a crazy variancy sentiment, a crazy emulations sentiment, a crazy wrathy sentiment, a crazy strifey, sedition-y, heresy-y sentiment, a crazy envyings, murderers, drunkenness, revilings sentiment. He will ingest one particular issue in the society, maybe two at the most, perhaps three on a bad day, but he's not just going to lambaste you with just a ubiquitous sinful nature zonke in one fell sweep. There will be a grain, but there will be enough good, enough reasonableness, and enough okayness for people to continue to thrive and think that this is okay. When a society is as cantankerous as one that would have all the fruits of the sinful nature just bubbling at the folds, what is this? People would snap out of it and realize that this is unsustaining. Human beings are born inherently with eternity on their hearts. They are born sort of kind of curious about God, and they are inherently self-preserving. If we were not inherently self-preserving, we would not be then in the image of God. We have a conscience, and it causes a recalibrating of scales that makes us rather choose what is better in society so it can be a going concern into the future. Satan knows the entropy, ultimate end result of just like muddying a whole country with all of these fruit. So he will only do one or two or three at the most. So a society will then be, for instance, rich with idolatry, witchcraft, and perhaps maybe, if we're really like on a bad day, heresies. A society will be rich with idolatry, witchcraft, and heresies, and that's all that Satan is going to do. So he'll leave out adultery, he'll leave out fornication, he'll leave out uncleanness, lasciviousness, he will leave out hatred, he will leave out variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revilings, and such the like. He will leave them to be, just simmering perhaps at like the 15% mark, 10% mark. But the one that will be rife in society at like 80%, 75%, like just really dominating that culture. Yeah, that's the one that's going to send every last one of its people dropping like dominoes into the flames of hell. Every last one of the people in that community. Like I said, with white supremacy, they had a problem with the God complex, idolatry of oneself, a self-exaltation about everybody else, a racism, that's hatred. Just a hatred, do you understand? And a variance too, segregating between blacks and whites, group areas act, etc., between Indians and whatnot. That was their main thing. And they were able to successfully maintain a relatively healthy looking, at least from the bird's eye view, South Africa, until people got sick and tired and raised up and rioted, and now there was like the revolutions that ultimately transformed the country to what it is today. But if at all they were like, if at all white folk were not only like in the days of apartheid, if they were not only into hatred and variance, right, but they also were just adulterous and fornicating and unclean and lascivious and witchcrafty and emulating. Oh guys, South Africa would not have survived. So they had to have had, long story short, a self-righteousness. They had to have been good at certain things, which is the reason why so many people today are busy coming on social media and saying, guys, you all remember how in the days of apartheid, there were no power cuts. In the days of apartheid, our roads did not have potholes. In the days of apartheid, our plumbing infrastructure was intact. There was not all that much corruption between government officials trying to bring up a beast claiming that it was better than the present country. That is a self-righteous spirit speaking to all the good that was done during the days when it is that people were walking in hatred, variance, and in hatred and variance during a time when these two sins were prevalent in the country. Everything else, like sobriety enough to build skyscrapers and strong electrical and plumbing infrastructure, was a thing. They will literally highlight that which was beneficial to the country at large in a spirit of self-righteousness in the apartheid regime, and conveniently ignore the hatred, the seditions, and the variance. Yeah. So, of course, South Africa was able to thrive until it stopped being survivable throughout apartheid. The country did not entirely implode because there was enough good going on. A little leaven leavens the whole lump. It takes just one little thing to plunge into the flames of hell everything and everybody. Everything and everybody. So having spoken that, then, allow me to just put this out there. Individuals, okay? In black culture, our white supremacy tantamount, is this thing with Abafazi back long ago. All right, gods, demons, fallen angels, spirits, right? I don't believe demons are fallen angels, but that's another story for another day. You get my point. I believe that they are disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, but sometimes I interchangeably use that terminology at my own peril. Okay, gods back then. My phone is on 15% now, so I'm gonna have to charge it at some point. Gods at that particular juncture. Well, of course, because they're gods, they're fake gods, small g, fallen angels that lay over civilizations as principalities, main thought leaders, sentiment proliferated into the veins of men, would of course then rock up in trying to magnify any of these fruit of the sinful nature in any society in order to condemn the whole society. Okay, and in black culture, the gods of black culture, literally across Africa, it's a thing across Africa. The gods of black culture, this is what they introduced to us. Okay, from what I have observed, they introduced adultery, they introduced idolatry. Of course, across all cultures, idolatry is a thing. They introduced witchcraft, and they introduced fornication. Well, of course, heresies too, but that all falls within it as well, heresies. So let's say that again. The gods of Africans, they introduced idolatry, so not the worship of the main true God. Witchcraft is just rife across Africa. They introduced adultery. They introduced, as a result, adultery is fornication. You can put that in one clump, right? So adultery / fornication, they introduced that. They introduced witchcraft, and they introduced heresies. That is an envyings, right? That is just the main problem with the black community. It's witchcraft, it's heresies, it's adultery / fornication. The Bible says, and revelings and such the like, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. The operative understanding here is that they that do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. That's the main modus operandi with why any principality chilling over a people are trying to achieve. So with the example of white supremacy, their hatred, their variance, and their hatred, variance, and idolatry of oneself, it caused them, who have now perished and gone to a dark place, to not inherit the kingdom of God. They were kept in that grain, thinking they can keep going to church and coming back, while hating so much, causing so much seditions, so much division, so much strife, causing so much worship of them, that they died and discovered in the abyss where they were at, that yes, like it, thanks to apartheid South Africa, as a white man that was in church from Monday to Sunday, I'm in hell now. They who do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. So in terms of black culture, those walking in witchcraft, idolatry, adultery and fornication and heresies, you will not inherit the kingdom of heaven. You will not inherit the kingdom of heaven. You sin differently from each other. You will not inherit the kingdom of heaven, however, because clumped in your insanity are all other sins. It's just that some cultures are more prevalent to certain sins than others. And in black culture, the ones I've highlighted now are the main thing. So your gods, in other words, what you call ancestors, the creation of spirituality among you from very long ago in the past, even before you got taken by white men and whatnot to either live in their countries or to stay in yours, however colonized. Yeah, all that striving that you experienced back then, yeah, you guys caused you to more feverishly hold fast to the insanities of your gods, the idiosyncrasies of your gods. You latched onto them.